Good morning. It's a really nice day out here today, and I thought, what better day to wake up early, get outside before everybody else kind of catches up and the heat catches up. And I want to talk about what it means to be present. Not living in the past, not living in the future and think about all the things in life that makes us anxious, but really dialing it back, keeping it simple, and think about what it means to be present with ourselves in the moment. So let's go ahead and pick it up, take a walk, and talk about what that means today. All right, so up front, real quick disclosure. When I was setting this camera up and find this spot, there's this bee that's been following me. And no matter what I've done, the thing has not left me alone. So if at any point I jump up and start freaking out, I'm not tripping. Even if you can't see the bee on camera, I swear it's around me somewhere. But I'm gonna do my best to get through this, so we're gonna find another spot. So with all that being said, I wanna talk about the idea of past and future and not living in the present at first. I'm gonna talk about that right after this, but just kind of looping together the whole idea of living in the past, living in the future. So I think a lot of us tend to kind of fall into one or two of these camps, right? Or maybe even both, but we miss living in the present. So when you think a lot about the past, right? There's a difference between kind of reflecting back on things that you have been involved in, that you've done, or that have happened to you, and understanding the lessons that we need to take from those. A lot of times things that happen to us are just moments we need to kind of reflect back on in a certain way to take the value from it. But when we get to a point where we're dwelling in that, that's when it becomes detrimental to whatever else is going to happen to us later. It's easy to sit there and get stuck in a moment that didn't work out the way you wanted it to. Not a lot of things in life are always going to work out the way you want it to, but when you look back in your life, you can understand these lessons whenever you're presented with a similar moment too. So it's not that it's bad to think about the past, but it's bad to kind of get stuck there and let that be in the controlling narrative. And so with that being said, also thinking about your future, right? This is why a lot of us kind of feel anxious in today's society. I'm a person that's always been super anxious when I was growing up. Like I get a lot of these issues, anxious for social interactions, anxious for being in the gym, anxious for being in the grocery store. We get to a point sometimes where if you're not living in the past, you'd be living in the future. Like, what if this happens? What if I do this and my outcome doesn't work out? What if I talk to this person and they hate me? What if I try for this job and I don't get it? What if I try for my goal and people make fun of me? Like, we're always thinking about what may happen, not what is happening. So if you're either living in the past, or you're thinking about what you did do that you can't change, or if you're living in the future, that no matter how much you think through it, you're not gonna be able to predict the outcome no matter what you do. These are two things that kind of keep us strung out on opposite sides of the spectrum here, when in reality, the moment that we're looking for is living in the present. And we often overlook this, but it's the most vital because it is what we are in control of at the current moment, and it's what's actually going to determine our future. Not thinking about the future, not reflecting back on the past and what could have been. It may seem simple in nature, but sometimes we need to stop and remind ourselves of these things so that we don't get to the point where, before we know it, we're sitting on one of the two extremes. I think a lot of us have to kind of go through our own journey. Sometimes you have to realize over years that you've been living in the past, realize over years that you've been living in the future. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Like it took me many years of my life to get to this point where I've understood that living in the present is the most important thing to do. You shouldn't get to a point where you beat yourself up because that's counterproductive too, right? I would say that's akin to living in the past because you're thinking about the things that you didn't do so far, how much time I wasted living in the past or living in the future. The whole point of this video is not to make you sit there and beat yourself up about that. The whole point is to look at this and say that if you are currently stuck in one of these two sides, have a little presence in mind, step outside yourself, up your self-awareness, and understand that even if you have been doing that, today's the day that you can make that change. So what's stopping you? We can kind of loop that back around too. No B. Nice. I want to talk about what it means to be present now. Now, bear in mind, I'm probably going to have like one take before I'm out here just getting cooked. So, all right, maybe I'm gonna get one take. I swear this park is huge and that bee has been following me. I don't know what this thing is doing. This is turning more into like an evasive series than it is me talking about being present in the actual moment. But hopefully I can be present in this moment enough to get through this so we can work on this stuff together. Anyway, so kind of talking about being present, right? Like it's hard to do this. I get it, right? Because instinctually, like when things don't work out the way we want, or we want them to work out in a very specific way, when we think about our future, we're always thinking about this. We put certain outcomes in the future, and when they don't happen, we can get disappointed. And when we live in the past, we're not focused on the present, which is actually going to get us towards the future we want, not thinking about it. I know I already talked about the past and the future, but when we talk about being in the present, this is something that you ultimately, throughout time, will realize is the most important thing to do. Because unlike the past and the future, it's something you can control. You can wake up today, and you can choose to be better than you were yesterday. You can choose to think about the future that you actually want and do the steps that you need to get to there. It doesn't matter. Like, let's say, for example, you want to improve your health overall. You can think about the last 10 years of eating chips, sitting on the couch, not taking walks, not doing active things that got you to where you were. But how much of that thinking is ever going to get you to a place where you're actually feeling like you're achieving what it is that you want to do? And if you think about the future, thinking about like, I'm going to have 6-pack of abs, I'm going to be able to go on, run marathons and stuff like that. I'm going to have meal prep programs and all this stuff too. That's great to envision what you want. But if that's all that you constantly think about and you're not actively building those steps that kind of bridge where your current reality is into that, then once again, it may seem like it's more helpful than living in the past. And I would make that argument and I agree. But at the same time, if you focus only on the future, you're missing part of the present. So the middle is the present. And that is the bridge that takes you from anywhere you want to go. And if we don't focus on the present, we're missing this big gap and we're expecting to take this leap from our past to our future and not understand that the most important part is the journey here. I mean, how often do we hear this, right? It doesn't matter, like if you're into content creation and stuff like that, and you look and you see people that talk about it, a lot of people say the same thing. And it's not even just content creation, it's businesses and things like that too. They always say the most important part is what? The journey. And that's for a reason. It's because the journey is represented by the present, and that is where you currently live in the moment, and in the actions that you can control, and it's the things that actually shape what your future is. Living in the present can mean so many different things, right? Going back to the whole example of like health and kind of being able to improve and do things like that. Okay, right? So like, let's say, for example, in the last few years, you haven't done what you needed to be able to take care of your health and get to where you want to be. So presently, what are you going to do? Okay, well, like later on, I want to be healthy and I want to achieve these goals. I want to have some meal prep. I want to look better, feel better, and be there for my family long term. So in the present, you got to focus on taking those steps, right? So that means maybe waking up an hour early and making yourself a good breakfast, making a couple eggs instead of going to grab a donut or something else like that too, right? If you want to get into an actual healthy routine, then maybe that means waking up tomorrow and going and getting in 1,000 steps for the day. You don't need to go straight to 10,000 steps from sitting on the couch, but take these incremental steps to get there. When you focus on the present and taking these actual steps, writing things out if you need to, or just coming up with a game plan for you every day, every weekend, every month, that's what allows you to actually make progress and get there. It's hard to live in the present, and I get that. It's because these things in our past that either control the narrative or the things in the future that we're thinking about take our attention. We only have so much attention at the end of the day, right? Just like people say you only have 24 hours in a day, you only have so much time and attention you can give out in the day. So your goal that you want to get to, that future you're often thinking about that you want to get to faster and more efficiently, is actually being stalled because you're taking some of that energy and you're putting it into places that aren't best suited you. It's like I said before, don't sit there and just completely neglect the past and the lessons you learned from that. And don't just sit there in the future and think about all the what ifs and the perfect outcome you're envisioning that likely won't happen. Take as much of that energy as you possibly can, put that back in your present, and you'd be surprised where that actually takes you. Probably where you actually want to be. So to go ahead and close this out, what better way to do so than to give an example of something that just happened? So when I was setting up my last shot with the camera, I didn't get it on camera. I wish I was recording, but a gentleman walked by me. I said hello. He said hello back. And I just asked him, hey, how you doing? Just making the most casual, simple comment out there. And his response to that was, I wish I was more consistent. I'm out here today, but I just wish I was more consistent with my exercise and doing this stuff out there too. Now keep in mind, this is strange. I've never met him before. And this is the first thing he says to me in response to how you doing. So it reiterates kind of the point I've been talking about here, especially as it relates to the past. Sometimes if you're dwelling in all the things that you didn't do, the last 3-4 days you didn't come out here and work out, you forget to give yourself credit for the things you're doing today, which is your present, which will inevitably give you the future that you do want. So instead of sitting here and beating yourself up about it, or getting to a point where you don't even realize that subconsciously you're sitting there saying, this is what I didn't do, and you're thinking about this, and this is top of mind enough to the point where that's your response to, this is how I'm doing today. Look back into the actual moments of the things that you're doing right there, because the present is where we make our future actually happen. And this is how we eventually get rid of that past that we seemingly don't really feel like we're proud of. This is a man that got up, chose to sacrifice sleep today and better himself to come out here and exercise. Doesn't matter if it's once a month, once a week, or once a day. So even these small victories we have deserve praise. And sometimes you're the one sitting there that can praise yourself. So be proud of yourself, be kind to yourself. Remember to live in the present. And sometimes it's important to kind of evaluate, do we think too much in the past? Do we think too much in the future? There's one way for it, and that's to live in the moment now. So that's what I'm gonna go ahead and do. I'm gonna enjoy the rest of this day before I start to barbecue out here, which isn't very much for now, but sometimes you gotta take what you can get and just be appreciative of that. So I hope this helped. I'm gonna see y'all in the next one. Take care for now. Peace.